Well, good afternoon, and apologies. I thought I'd actually already gone live and I'd already started the intro, and I think I made a slight bodge, and I don't think I was actually live. So apologies for that. We're live now. Hello to Zed and JJ, and welcome to watching. And let's get the intro going. And a very good evening. Welcome to the stream. Sorry it was a little late. I thought I'd actually gone live before I did actually. I started that intro and then I realised I'd not clicked on the button to go live. It's been one of those days actually. I've had a few computer problems, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that everything goes well with the stream tonight. Hello to Zed and JJ once again, and to Duncan once again. And I know both of you are subscribers to the channel. You're very welcome, and pleased to see you again. So we've got a bit of an Lner scenario going. We're going to start off with the Class 91, and let's get underway. We're on Train Sim Classic to begin with, so let's load the game up. Sorry about the late start once again. So the plan will be, we're going to go as far as Peterborough in the Class 91, and then it's going to be an Azuma to Doncaster, and then for the final part of the stream it should be a Class 185 from Sheffield to Manchester Piccadilly. I've had a few problems actually today trying to get everything working. So fingers crossed that we're all okay in the stream. Hope you're all well, and let's hopefully look forward to some decent rides on train sim. Seems an age since I've actually ridden the East Coast Main Line on the train game, so looking forward to giving the Class 91 a ride. As always, if the sound either from me or from the trains is not quite right, you want either the train or the me to be a bit louder, then let me know and I can adjust things, try and just get it a little bit to perfection. I was originally going to do the 91 all the way to Leeds, but then I've realised that the Creative Rail route, Peterborough to Doncaster on Train Sim Classic, I used to own that, and I bought it from Creative Rail a few years back, and I've realised that it's not installed anymore and you can't retrieve it from their website. That's defunct now. You can buy it from Steam itself now, but I've kind of forgotten that for the moment, because I thought, well, it's not that often I drive up the East Coast Main Line. I thought, well, at least we can get to Doncaster with a go with the Azuma on Train Sim World 5. I realised I was missing one thing on this. I think it's the 379. I've got it installed, but it's actually, again, you need all the various reskins. So good afternoon, driver. Welcome aboard the 1503 to Leeds. Begin by allowing the last of our passengers on board and prepare the train for departure from King's Cross. I think the first thing to say is what a fantastic reskin this is, and very reminiscent of what's been recreated in real life. And I have to say that it's so close to the original intercity colours that were introduced with these trains. So we'll get the doors open actually, so that we can hopefully get an on-time departure. We've still got a red on, so we'll leave that DRA on red for the moment. And we'll get the headlights set up into something more appropriate for daytime running. That's the back of the train, that's the DVT. And then we've got an Azuma just leaving the platform as well. Loving that name as well, Sir Bobby Robson, an absolute footballing legend, of course, and many great memories of him as a football manager, going back to Ipswich really, and then of course England. I didn't know there was going to be a new train. Do we know what it is? Is it going to be a new UK train? I mean, I've heard some talk that there's going to be another loco from Just Trains, and there's been all sorts of speculation as to what that might be. But I've got absolutely no idea if there's going to be a new train coming out. And if you know what it is, then please let us know. I'd be delighted to know. This is incidentally the King's Lynn version of the route actually that we're going to take to Peterborough. Yes, indeed. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. So, we've got the right away from the guard. And then I think we can get underway. I love the sounds in this Class 91 as well. I think it really does bring it to life. Actually, let's get us into... You'll hear the whir of the electric motors just actually going up. So we should be. Oh yeah, we must actually remember that we've got this speed control thing here. So if you've got it set at 0, it won't actually allow you to move off. We are non-stop to Peterborough. Doesn't seem 5 minutes to go. Since the Class 91s were released. It seems as though it's 5 minutes ago. They were actually brand new trains, and I remember it clear as a day, and seeing them for the first time at King's Cross seemed quite exciting. Right, HS2, so do you mean that there's something coming out that's relating to HS2 for Trainson World 5? What's that, like the Eurostar or something? Or, you know, have we got, or are they thinking about doing the HS2? Mind you, know HS2's the new line, isn't it? Feel as though I've missed out on some news there. I'll have to have a look. They are speedy trains, these. They obviously get up to 125, but you kind of feel as though the acceleration is actually quite slow. Yeah, let's get that down to... Oh, we can go up to 65 already, can't we? Just keeping my fingers crossed that everything works out okay with the stream. Alright, sounds interesting. Yeah, have to have a look at that. Is that sort of dovetail live or in the forums? I'll have to take a check on that. We're about to go past the Emirates Stadium. I mean, it's been very beautifully modelled like the real stadium, just a shame that we haven't got a patch to put in the logos and stuff to kind of make it look even more realistic. Slightly stuttery in the early stages, but we should settle down once we kind of get beyond Finsbury Park and Bounds Green. I mean, this is a kind of the original East Coast Main Line route, is a very old route in terms of train simulator, but I think with the improvements, I mean, you've got the new track textures and all the catenary's been relayed and lots of stuff done to the scenery, and this is part of the King's Lynn route from Alan Thompson, then it massively improves things. Building up speed nicely now. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zed and JJ. I should remember, because I know you've told me before, but you've confirmed whether you are Zed or JJ. I can never remember. Apologies. But I know you're a regular viewer, and very good to see you watching and early on. That's always good to see. And thank you very much. It's really, really appreciated, and quite overwhelmed with some of the support really over the last few weeks. It certainly encourages me to keep going. Neutral section coming up. Yeah, right, yes, I remember Zed now, yeah. Zachary, yeah, I remember well, yeah. Sign of old age, I'm afraid, for my part. I forget these things. So apologies, but yeah, really appreciated the support, and it's fantastic to see you watching week in, week out. At least we haven't got to worry about stopping at Stevenage anyway on this run, because that's always a bit of a random stop on the way to Peterborough. We're soon good for 115. I think we're kind of 115 to about Welling, I think, Welling Garden City. Yet to go on one of these current liveries. Or the way they're liveried now. I mean, it's very similar to the old intercity colour scheme. The only difference is, I mean, it used to be basically black, but they've kind of come up with a sort of a purpley, maroony type texture. And and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I did book a service from Leeds to London, which essentially was going to be a Class 91, and then an Azuma turned up. Now that can happen sometimes. Right now we're good for 115, and this is the great thing about this speed control. You can set it to 115 and then just sit back and allow it to control your speed. It's even easier than the speed control on the Pendolino. This really is like a cruise control on a car, effectively. Of this little section where you've kind of got the station sandwiched in between the two tunnels. All these Thameslink services, and it does feel as though with this it is kind of modern day, because we've got all the correct traction for the current times, as well as operating this Class 91, and I guess they won't be around forever, so it's great to still see them out in service on the main line. So I always find it, I know it's a bit irritating to have it in the way of the screen. Kind of hurtling away from the London suburbs now. Certainly this version of the route has improved it massively in many ways. The more accurate catenary throughout, it gives the feeling for the way the route is. I'm always a little biased, but I always think that the West Coast main line is the more interesting of the two main lines, really, because there's kind of more scenery in the East Coast main line, just a little bit more flat as we kind of go into East Anglia and beyond into Lincolnshire, and then eventually into Yorkshire. It's famous old territory, of course, and when we kind of descend Stoke Bank, you think of the Mallard all those years ago doing that 126 miles an hour, which remains a world speed record to this day, of course. It's very much hallowed turf. Even the 91s, which still seem like new trains to me, as I was saying a bit earlier on, but pretty much getting towards the end of their life now, really. So again, just to confirm the plan for tonight, there's certainly 3 scenarios set up. Fingers crossed that they all work okay, because we've had a few issues in practice, just trying to get everything ready and working. But So the idea is we're going to take this Class 91 on a run through to Peterborough, and then we're going to carry on the East Coast Main Line from Peterborough up to Doncaster, but this time with TSW5 and then with the Azuma, and then we're on to back to Trainsim Classic for a Trans-Pennine South run from Sheffield through to Manchester Piccadilly via Stockport. It's kind of that third one that's given me the most problems in practice, and I've kind of been messing around with the computer all day. I'm still not totally sure what the issues have been, but fingers crossed that it's working now. We've got the signs for the neutral sections there. I'm not 100% sure if the neutral sections are fully in. We would have passed it by now, surely. It's a 717 on the left that we just passed on a Welwyn Garden City from Moorgate run. It's possible, of course, to do the full run from Moorgate on Trainsim Classic. Just a pity that for the 717 we've still got the cab for the 700. It needs to have that kind of middle bit. And I only realised recently that the reason why there has to be a connecting corridor bit at the front is simply because of the fact that you're going through tunnels at the start of the run. There is a speed control on the Pendolino, but it's kind of this sort of area. I mean, on here you just control it with this, and you can use your left and your right arrow keys. I'm not sure actually what button you're supposed to use, but it only works to a certain extent. It's just like a button to switch it on, then you kind of have to reactivate it a bit. It's not quite as sophisticated, even though this is an older train. This works a lot more like the cruise control. Forgot to point out Welwyn North there and going over the viaduct. We'll shortly be taking on the 125. Well, we are 125 now actually, aren't we? So we can increase that speed control to 125. I think I'm right in saying I don't think drivers would use this as a brake control. I think when you're slowing down, then you just use the conventional brakes, but it's an excellent means of keeping up to the full speed. I mean, it's advantageous here because we've got this downhill section, but we haven't got to worry about applying the brakes because the train will do its own thing. These neutral sections keep coming up thick and fast. Those Lumo trains, they don't have first class, do they? And we are shortly about to go storming through Stevenage. Hello there, 156. I remember the shortbread name and the fact that it was 156 in there as well. I think the last time I can remember you commenting was when we were doing that Manchester Piccadilly to Buxton stretch towards the end of the stream. Was that 2 weeks ago? So welcome again to the channel. And thanks very much for watching. Glad to have you on board. I think the locos were built, well, they built a crew, weren't they, the 91s, and the Mark 4s were built by Met Camel. And still feels kind of just about old school trains, really. So fingers crossed, hopefully. I mean, I think that time when I did the Manchester Piccadilly to Buxton run, it was going to be, oh, there we go, that's where, that was properly noted, the neutral section there, I certainly noticed that. Yeah, this 91, this is on a Leeds service, but we're only taking this as far as Peterborough, and the reason being, I was planning originally to run this through all the way to Leeds, but I've then realised that that Creative Rail route from Peterborough to York, which I do own, but I had a little bit of an issue a few weeks back where I had to uninstall and reinstall all the train sim content, and I've realised I've lost that route and you can't download it anymore from Creative Rail. So the option is to buy it again off Steam. I think it's about $24.99, I think it is. But I thought, well, for this week at least I'm going to just do the Azuma from Peterborough through to Doncaster. Oh, we did get the neutral section there. It's funny, but we've had loads of neutral section signs and I can't recall the noise going off like it did there. This is obviously the flyover that takes you across, instead of going across at Hitchin through onto the Cambridge line. It still feels slightly old school, the sounds on this, and so much the better for it in my opinion. And the scenario that I've downloaded, this was from Alan Thompson Simulation. This was a two-part scenario which would take you through to Leeds. And we'll see how we're going after the Manchester Piccadilly to Sheffield run. Well, that's providing we make that through all right without any problems, and there might still be a bit of time at the end, but we'll see how things go on. I have to say, the East Coast Main Line feels as though we've had so many versions of this route. I mean, I remember it being a fairly early kind of freeware scenario for Microsoft Train Simulator. Of course, the graphics were nowhere near as good as this, but it was pretty decent going. Yeah, very much so. I agree with you there, Duncan. I love the old sounds, and I always think on the Mark IVs it sounds slightly tinny, a bit like that on the Pendolinos in many ways, but different. Are they think there's something like Swiss bogies, aren't they, on these Mark IV carriages, but you get just a slightly different sound, but again, very, very distinctive. Well, ignore, by the way, when it says we're speeding, because in reality, it's holding us at 125, and that's a bit of a train simulator bug, really. It can't recognise that we're actually doing the right speed. Once we've gone above, I think, 125.5, then it reckons we're speeding. But it will apply the brakes if we start to edge towards 126. And we are very much into flat sort of fenland country now, aren't we? We're about to overtake a stopping Peterborough service. Be wrong, but I think these neutral sections, it seems as though from now on they seem to, you definitely hear the sound of the motors being cut, but I didn't hear that in the early stages, and I didn't see the markers either. I mean, it might just be that, I'm sure I've downloaded the latest version of the route, but there's always things you'd miss sometimes. Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's true in real life, isn't it? You certainly wouldn't be allowed to kind of go 2 or 3 miles an hour above the speed limit like maybe you could get away with in a car. But I think the game's slightly too harsh compared with real life. I think as long as we maintain 125, we're okay. It's quite chilled out to be able to use this speed control, because you're not constantly worrying about whether you're going uphill or downhill and having to constantly apply the brakes. Must have been a godsend for the drivers when they were trained to drive on the 91s. They were used to driving at speed with the HSDs, and before that 100 mile an hour with the Deltics, of course, before that steam. And it's always been a fairly straight route, the East Coast Main Line, not quite like the West Coast Main Line, which has got so many curves. The East Coast is a lot straighter. That's kind of why they weren't massively so fixated about having tilting trains on the East Coast Main Line. And I remember getting the Class 91 for Microsoft Train Sim. There was a company called European Barn who brought out King's Cross to Peterborough. Again, being thrilled at the time to have custom models done at the major stations. And again, the scenery wasn't as good as this. And I think a lot of people would love for Dovetail Games to actually do the King's Cross to Peterborough bit for Train Sim World 5, and maybe bring out the Class 91 as well. There's been so many crossings as well, this part of East Anglia. crossings, farm gates, all sorts of means of crossing this 4-line tracks. Well, hope you're enjoying your Sunday. First warning of the neutral section. So take the speed off in preparation, because I don't think it's good form to be going through the neutral section with the speed on. Yeah, there you heard it, you see, didn't you? You heard the sound cut. There's some issue with the neutral sections, I'm sure, on the early stages of this route. Essentially, this is probably the last mainline loco that British Rail ordered and built, really, before the railways were nationalised. I know there was some testing done during the 1990s, and there was the possibility of extending the order and using them on the West Coast Main Line, but it never came to fruition. I think the Mark IVs as well, I think when they were first designed, although they aren't tilting, I think that Camel had to put in a provision so that should tilting be implemented at a later date, then they had to allow for the carriages to be retrofitted for that. Apologies for the creaky chair, incidentally. Let's put some WD-40 on it one of these weeks. As we get closer to Peterborough, then we'll have a section where I think there's 3 tracks instead of 4, if I recall rightly. About all these level crossings, though, it's a good excuse to use the horn, which is quite a sound to it on the 91s. I mean, I can well remember there was a programme, I think it was part of the Channel 4 Equinox series, called Running to Time, and it's been uploaded to YouTube fairly recently. And I started to watch that. That was broadcast on a Sunday night, the night before the very first Class 91 was released as finished at Crewe. And it was a fabulous programme. And they kind of talked about a lot of the issues within the railway industry and the competition with air travel, coaches and cars and everything. And it was a very well produced programme. I think it's about an hour long. I suppose it's a bit like the Euston to Milton Keynes, really, in that it's obviously only a small section of the East Coast Main Line, but it still feels like a decent run down it. I do love these trains from this sort of era. In my late teens, early 20s when this first came out. And I'm not against the Azumas either, and I've had a couple of runs down from Leeds to King's Cross on the Azuma, and people say they aren't as comfortable and that the seats are a little bit kind of iron board like, but I don't find them too bad personally. With that camera 4 that you could pick whether you want to. I love that line side view where you see it racing by. I think that's quite spectacular. I've got to say that the time already has actually raced by on this run. I mean, we're only about 12 miles away, under 12 miles now to Peterborough. See how flat it is around here as well. The heart of the Fenlands and East Anglia. Take a massive amount of route learning really in terms of the speed limits, because pretty much 125 since we passed through Welwyn Garden City. First time we do have a speed restriction coming on 105 miles an hour, so we'll prepare for that. So we're a mile away yet, although doing these speeds it comes on you pretty quick. The 105, so we've got a double track section for the moment, then we drop down to 100. we're back up to 115. Not too far away. Again, not 100% sure, but kind of assume with these changes in the speed limits, I know they definitely don't use them for braking, but kind of guessing that they wouldn't necessarily speed up when there's very fractional speed limit changes. Kind of wait until we get something a bit more permanent. But I think that's a fabulous livery, and I think really pleased and chuffed when Lner chose to repaint all their 91s into this colour scheme. And long may they continue to run on these lead services. I've adjusted the speed limit there with the keyboard control, but it's kind of, have I done it right? Oh, not quite, no, it's 115 we want. Although in all honesty, we'll pretty shortly be thinking about slowing down for Peterborough, where we will change trains. I mean, actually the service I've got in mind for Peterborough to Doncaster is actually earlier in the day, so we'll be going back in time. Never mind, I was looking on the awesome train services for TSW5 to kind of pick out a decent run on the Azuma. Again, you're not 100% sure, but I think by the looks of it, in theory, we could get a red signal before the platforms at Peterborough, so we have to be mindful of that, particularly if this is a single yellow. The assumption is we're going to get moving over onto this line. That seemed a bit speedy, the transition over there, but you kind of assume that the next signal will be clear now, but you have to be always on the thought, well, the last one was single yellow, so you can't have any thoughts about it being definitely clear. Slowing down to about 30, so that should we have a red, but we would be able to hopefully stop in time. I think we're all right, judging by that. The advance warning, as it were, of the signal, the repeater, isn't it? That's what they're called. I think this should pretty much take us into the platforms at Peterborough. We'll be stopping on platform 4. Famous road bridge. At Peterborough. mean to press that button, of course. No, there is a massive car park the other side of the station now. I think that road bridge takes you down to a roundabout. Ah, I don't think I've got my settings turned up high enough. We should have the platforms here. We've got invisible platforms going on. Oh well, we'll pretend that didn't exist. Never mind. I did enjoy that run though, I have to say. Sir Bobby Robson. Always a pleasure to have a ride in the Class 91. The settings are on high enough. I'm not sure what was going on with those platforms, but never mind, we're not going to worry about it too much. Now, as it says, we move on to part 2 of the journey, which would take us in the 91 through to Leeds, but instead we're going to actually drive the Azuma now on Train Sim World 5. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I think it's a lovely old loco. Fabulous train. So I'm going to load up Train Sim World 5. Now I have got a slight error message on my recorded software, so I'm just going to make totally sure that we're still, well, I can see we're still working. Yeah, I think, I mean, they were very much in use as far as Edinburgh, the Class 91s, until a few years ago. Of course, they had many livery changes, but I think the latest livery to represent the original intercity livery they've only used them since they've been restricted to operating on the Leeds trains. I'm just going to turn the sound slightly down because I think on Train Sim World 5 it's a bit noisier. Maybe that's about right, I'm hoping. Right, let's dive into East Coast Main Line. So the Class 801, I think it's the 8011, but we'll check on there in a second. A little bit of cloud in. So what we're looking for is 1 Hotel 01, which I think is the 826. There we go. I was really intending to get the Flying Scotsman back in because I've still not downloaded all my content for Train Sim World 5 yet. So it would have been nice to have seen us passing the Flying Scotsman, but I just ran out of time today really, just didn't get a chance to put that in. Not liking how it stopped here. What is going on with this game today? Apologies for this, just getting a little bit of a technical error. It's completely stuck, hasn't it? I think I'm going to have to restart Train Sim World 5. Let's see where the game is. I did see it once. Is there any reference I can see for it? Right, let's try that again, as they say. Oh, hello there as well. Welcome again. So sorry you joined us at the point where we seem to be going all wrong, but hopefully we'll be back on track. I'm not massively surprised because I've had a few computer issues today, I can't lie. But hopefully we'll be all right in a minute. It'll be all right on the night. Funny thing is, this was the scenario I wasn't worried about. I thought we won't have a problem with this. Right, so 8011, we'll put that into have some cloud. So we wanted the 0826 London King's Cross to Hull. So the idea is we're taking it as far as Doncaster from Peterborough. Oh, welcome back from your dinner. I'm having a few problems at the moment. I have had a few problems with the computer today. But let's have another go at it. I mean, there is a chance we might have to reboot and stuff, but fingers crossed. I really don't know what's up with it. I was kind of hoping that we wouldn't have too many problems. I really don't know what's up here. Get rid of that, I suppose. That's taking up a bit of space, isn't it? Earth is the problem. Oh, sorry about this, folks. We'll have another try. I'm a bit concerned, even if we load it up, that we're going to get a problem. Well, theory, we're up and running, so goodness knows what the problem is here. I've just realised anyway, the 826 is a service from Grantham anyway, isn't it? So, right, okay. I wanted to go from Peterborough. Right, perhaps we need an 8012. Go for a similar time of the day. Yeah, that'll do. It's 52 minutes. Nope, it's not liking that. Well, we'll keep going for a little while yet. but I need to get things going. And I have been playing the game for months and I've never had these problems before. It's suddenly something that's occurred today, actually. I don't know what the issues are. Very strange. No. Let's have another look at the what's going on with this. 40% of the memory is being used, so that's the top one. It's very strange. I've not normally had problems with this, I have to say. I'll perhaps have a couple more goes at it, but unfortunately, if I can't sort it, then I'm going to have to end things for tonight. It doesn't really matter which one we try. And it shouldn't be a problem. I've never had a problem with this before. Yeah. There shouldn't be any issue at all. Should be no issue. Well, I'll have one last go at loading it, and what I might try then, I might just try restarting, rebooting the computer, so I'll have to obviously end the stream and just see if I can get it back going again and then have another go at it. Ever so sorry about this. Normal service will be able to resumed at some point. I can't see that it. No, it's not going to work, is it? Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to end things, so it might be good night actually, but I'm hoping not. I'm going to have another go. If I can get the game loaded back on, then I will be back up and running shortly. But if not, thanks very much for watching. Goodbye for now, and we'll have another go. Well, hello, welcome back. I am back after the break. I know that was a very, very long break indeed. I think I might have got things working again. I think it was as simple as a Windows update, but I think it's just basically got corrupted somewhere, and it took it absolutely ages to recover. But I think we're okay again now. Let's see if we can get something going again. I've been playing around trying to make sure everything's okay, and I think it's all okay. I think it literally, hopefully, was as simple as that. A Windows update that was corrupted. So when I just tried it, it looked as though it was absolutely perfect. So let's try again with the second part of this scenario. So we'll do this London King's Cross to Leeds at 0850. Maybe I was being over optimistic here.